Hello, College Accounting Procedures students. I just wanted to take a few minutes and create this video to help go over Project 1. So at this point, we are learning the full accounting cycle, and we have learned in Chapter 2, debits and credits, how to analyze transactions, record those transactions in the journal, post those to the ledger, and then create that unadjusted trial balance. So now, as we are wrapping up Chapter 2, and moving into chapters 3 and 4, I wanted to introduce the first project. So there's a lot in Project 1 that you can go ahead and start working on. And so I thought I would go over that a little bit. So if you go to Unit 3, chapters 3 and 4, down about halfway, you'll see a link for project number 1. So if you click that, it will open up a project in Cengage that you'll be working on as you complete chapter 3. So this project, you have a couple of weeks to work on it, but you can go ahead and get started as you're learning about Chapter 3. Okay. So it is kind of similar to what you saw in some of the Chapter 2 homework, where you'll actually be keeping a journal and a ledger and then doing your unadjusted trial balance. So at the point we are now, you are actually all ready to start the journalizing, posting to the ledger, and doing that first unadjusted trial balance. As you work through Chapter 3, you're also going to learn how to do adjusting entries and complete the adjusted trial balance. So once you finish covering Chapter 3, you'll be able to finish this first project. Once we've done Project 1, Project 2 is a continuation, and so when we finish Chapter 4, you'll be prepared to complete Project 2. However, project number 1 is the more lengthy of the projects, so I wanted to go ahead and get you started. As you can see here, you have an instructions page, and it gives you transactions for May 3rd through the 17th, and then May 20 through the 31st. Below that are some requirements. There's a lot to read through, so I wanted to explain to you what exactly you're going to be doing. So the first step you're going to want to look at is if you click on the Ledger tab, you are going to have on the Ledger tab, download the attached spreadsheet. So I'm going to open up that Excel spreadsheet document. So I clicked on it to download it. I click Enable Editing. And then make sure you're on the Ledger tab down here at the bottom. This worksheet is optional. It's great when you're working through the work from Chapter 3, but right now I want to click on the Ledger. And as you can see, this is a computerized Excel spreadsheet ledger. So you have all of your accounts in chart of account orders here for you to work in. Before you start anything on the project, what I want you to do is I would print off this instruction sheet. So when I click the right here, this little option here to display the whole page, can then hit print item, and it'll print, whatever pages I have open here. Okay. So I could also click and print the chart of accounts if I wanted to. So any tab you have opened, it will print out for you. So print out the instructions and the chart of accounts. And you are going to use this post-closing trial balance dated April 30th. You are going to use these balances to open up or start your ledger. So these are ending balances as of April 30th. So they will be beginning balances as of May 1st in the business. So your numbers will not be accurate in your ledger unless you input these as beginning balances in your ledger. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this over and open up my Excel spreadsheet. And I am going to use that data in that post-closing trial balance to open up all of my ledger accounts. So before I do anything else, I'm going to put like May 1st balance or beginning balance, an X in the post reference. Since this is a beginning balance, there's no other post reference. And then on the balance, I'm going to put the 22,100 debit balance. As I type in here, it will format my numbers for me. So I'm just typing 22100. And I will do the same for any of the accounts that have balances on that post-closing trial balance from the instructions. So 3,400 to accounts receivable, supplies, 1,350. Okay, so I'm just going to keep doing this from cash all the way to retained earnings. So number one step, open up your ledger, put all those balances in. Once you're done there, make sure you do a file, save as, save it to your desktop or My Documents, wherever you are comfortable finding it, and just save it, as ledger and your last name. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to leave that open. And then once you've opened up all of those ledger accounts, you're ready to journalize. So you're going to start here on May 3rd and just read through these journal entries and record them to the journal. So on May 3rd, we received cash from clients as an advance payment for services to be provided and recorded as unearned fees. I click on my journal. I type in May 3rd. In this case, if I receive cash, I know I need to debit cash because cash increased. So I debit cash. I believe it's $4,500. Again, in Cengage, you can just type the numbers and it'll format for you. On the second line, I want to record my account that's being credited, which in this case is unearned fees, a liability account. Again, that unearned fees is an account we use when we receive advance payment from clients or customers, and we will perform the work at a later date. So unearned fees increases on the credit side, so we're increasing that liability unearned fees. So this is a standard look of what your journal entry should look like. When you move on to the next one, which I believe is May 5th, I can just put a 5 for the day there instead of typing May every time. And I will just start there on line 3, and I will do the same thing. So a couple of things I want to point out as you move into this project, some errors I see that are pretty common, is number 1, remember your roles of debit and credit that you learned in chapter 2. So every time you're analyzing a transaction, you should have at least one debit and at least one credit account. We always list our debit first. So in this transaction, I debited cash, so it's on line 1. I credited unearned fees, so I list it below. I could have a compound entry where more than one debit, or more than one account is being debited, or more than one account is being credited. List all of your debit accounts for that transaction, and then all of your credit accounts. Remember, total debits need to equal total credits for each transaction that you're journalizing. So I would continue on page 5 here of the journal, and I'm going to put all of my journal entries on page 5 from the 3rd through the 17th. So that will be the second thing I do after I open up my ledger. Once you have done that, you will be able to use the check my work button to check those, but you have to do a full page of journal entries first. So do all of your journal entries for May 3rd through the 17th, check your work, look for errors. If anything's red, that means there's an error. It may be that you have your debit and credit flip-flopped, or you've debited or credited the wrong account. So make sure you do that first. Once you're finished there, you want to post all of these journal entries to the ledger, okay? So what I'm doing there is, for example, cash on May 3rd increased, debited $4,500. I'm going to go to my cash ledger and put in the 3rd. My post reference is the journal page that it came from. In this case, it came from page 5. And then I debited cash $4,500. I want to keep a running total as I'm entering these from the ledger. If I debit cash, I'm increasing cash. So I'm going to take the existing balance of $22,100 and add in the $4,500. So I add those two together to get a new balance. If that had been a credit to cash, I would want to subtract. So I would take $22,100 minus whatever amount that was. I would still have a debit balance. It would just be less than the original balance. So I'm going to do that, and then my post reference back on my journal is my account number 11, 11 here. So I would do that with every line that I have journalized. Okay. So at this point, you should be able to journalize May 3rd through 17th on page 5 of the journal and post those all to the ledger accounts. And then on page 6 of the journal, you would then analyze and journalize May 20th through the 31st. And then you would do the same thing. Check your work, post to the ledger. Make sure and do those post references. Once you've gotten to that point, you can then take whatever's in your ledger balances and put that into your trial balance. So at that point, you will be prepared to do the unadjusted trial balance. And so you will go off of your ledger balances to make sure you're saving that ledger as you go through and enter in the ending debit or credit balances. At the end, total debits should equal total credits. And again, you can check your work as you go. At that point, we're moving into chapter 3 and we're going to learn adjusting entries. Once you're ready to do those are down in the instructions. So right now you're ready to do number 1, 2, and 3. Once we get into chapter 3 and you feel comfortable, you will go on to number 4. And on page 7 of the journal, you're going to journalize these adjusting entries. You're going to post those to the ledger, and then you're going to do an adjusted trial balance. Again, there'll be more posted on this as we go through and complete chapter 3. But I wanted to take a few moments just to show you the layout of the project and have you go ahead and get started. So it is reinforcing what we've already learned in chapters 1 and 2, and then we'll complete it when we're finished with chapter 3. So you have a couple of weeks to get this turned in. Again, it won't be until we are finished with chapter 3. So just looking at our dates here, as you can see, we are starting chapter 3 now, so your discussion will be due this week, and then next week you have your homework due. So you'll have a full week just to work on this project, okay? But go ahead and get started journalizing and posting and doing that unadjusted trial balance now, and then as you move into chapter 3, you'll be prepared to finish it off. Once we finish or wrapping up chapter 3, I'll post another little video about project 2, which again, you'll be completing after chapter 4. So as you can see, just looking at dates, we'll be covering chapter 4 before spring break. And then when we come back from spring break, we'll wrap up and test over chapter 3 and 4 together, and that project will be due. So as you can see down here, though, there is a place to turn in your project ledger. You want to keep that ledger for projects 1 and 2. Project 2 is a continuation. So hold on to the ledger and you will use it in project number 2. When you're finished with project 1, and if your numbers are not correct on your unadjusted trial balance, or more importantly, your adjusted trial balance 2, you want to make sure and make any corrections to project 1 because you will need the correct numbers to move on to project number 2. So if you ever have questions as you're working through the project or your numbers aren't matching up, again, just feel free to reach out, email me. I'll be happy to meet you in the accounting lab or email you and help you work out whatever you need. I hope you have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.